So, very briefly about us for anybody who is new. We are the Healthcare Project and Change Association. I'm Jo Stanford. I head up the HPCA. We have evolved from a voluntary collaborative of project and change professionals across the healthcare sector that was previously known as NHS Project Futures. And we have had the fantastic opportunity to move from that voluntary collaborative into a professional association that's a charity supporting project and change professionals across health and care, but also supporting the rest of the workforce with the knowledge and skills that they need to be able to work on projects and change. And we know that everybody gets involved with it. So that's a really critical part of what we do. We have regional networks that are based across the country, across the UK. So we have a Wales network and a Scotland network, as well as some regional networks in England. We also support by developing resources for project and change delivery. We have some toolkits, including a PMO toolkit. So there's lots of benefits of being a member. If you're working in health and social care, you get access to our online community platform. And there's all the resources through there, plus our community events and access to the network as well and the community, so that you can contact them and get in touch and share and network. We have our conference, which is coming up next week, so Tuesday. Anybody who is able to make it hasn't signed up yet. There is still an opportunity to bag a last-minute ticket. I'm sure that link will be going in the chat very soon too. And we also work with other associations and professional bodies, both internally in the NHS and also externally, to look at the innovation for the profession and how we can improve and develop what we do and how we do it, and how we can support some of those challenging topics and areas that NHS organisations are struggling with. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do. We have organisational membership, and that organisational membership provides access to all of those resources, all of those different things. And one of the things that it includes is part of our partnership working with the House of PMO, because it's projects of change and it's PMO. And this is a growing area in the healthcare sector, and one that we think that is going to be much more demand for. So getting the standards in place, getting the capability in place, the community of practice, the network that can support the development of the PMO is really critical. And this is where Lindsay and we have got together to work collaboratively on how we can support the improvement of the PMO functions across the healthcare sector. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So Lindsay, if I can pass over to you, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do in practice once we've got a bit of an overview from you. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, super. Thank you very much, and it's lovely to be here. And hopefully you can see my session that I'm going to be going through today. I'm going to be sharing with you just about House of PMO. This is what we'll get through in the next 30 minutes or so. But I think what's crucial here is, as Jo said there in her opening, that PMOs are obviously part of the whole project manager, program manager, change manager, the whole profession around change in any organization. And I think, and if you're listening here today, having been in that space for a while, or you're quite new to working around the whole kind of PMO project supporting type area, you'll know that it's one of those jobs where, we're doing a lot more than just understanding about project management and, supporting those people through this. But we're working with lots of different types of people right across our organisations, and certainly, obviously, within the NHS itself, you've got a lot of different kind of stakeholders and clinicians that you're working with. It's a very unique organisation, which gives us kind of different types of challenges that are more than just delivering a project successfully. We're doing a lot more than that, and I think what you'll see today is just why the House of PMO exists and the kind of things that we've been doing, and hopefully some of it's going to resonate with you, and hopefully you're going to be joining us to obviously help you and your individual career within your role within the NHS, but also helping your PMO as well. So what we'll get through today is obviously there from the agenda. Let's start off with just why it exists and where it comes from. Just for, always good to see a history around this stuff, because I've been working in this space since the late 90s, early 2000s, and I got involved with a voluntary group, and you'll see that name there, PPSO. That's what it used to be all about. It used to be stand for Project and Programme Support Office. That's what we were known as. And we were very much of a community of people that were supporting project managers and programme managers deliver their projects. And we started this community because back then, yes, projects were running, but PMO and the concept of it, having people there that are helping successful change and delivery, was quite a new concept, really. There's always been, some kind of administrative supporting. But as projects were getting more and more complex and complicated, more support and help and guidance was needed. So we started a voluntary group, and we found people that were in a similar position to ourselves. We were all working in this space and really needed to, what we're doing, what kind of, they've all got similar challenges, but how do we overcome these things? So we started a voluntary group, which was very much around a community of practice type thing. And that's how we started. And then from there, we moved on to, as the name there started to change, to PMO SIG. That's where the Project Management Office or Programme Management Office or Portfolio Management Office had started to come into play. And we, from our voluntary group, we were asked to join the APM. So many of you will be familiar with the Association for Project Management, and they have a collection of what they call specialist interest groups. And we were approached and said, would you maybe start our first PMO focused group within APM, which we did. Didn't stay for long though. We moved on to something called PMO Flash Mob, which sounds ridiculous. Ridiculous name, but it had a kind of serious thing at the heart of it. The reason why is that what had happened over that time, that history, is that PMOs are not just about projects and programme. And we take our toolkits and our standards and our processes from lots of different places. We can't really just align ourselves with one professional body and one approach for projects. We have to take it from everywhere. And not only that, now in today's modern times, is that portfolio management and the whole strategic implementation and the changes that are happening in organizations around things like data and AI and development of certain methods in terms of how we deliver projects. But we take things from everywhere. And we decided that actually what we would do is start something that, yes, it sounds ridiculous, PMO Flash Mob, but it got the attention of people. And people that are working within PMO looked a bit closer and said, this is starting to feel like a profession. We've always been on the coattails of the project managers and the program managers and the change managers. They have their professional bodies, and they had, people looking into developing standards and bodies and knowledge and things like that. And PMOs had always kind of been there on the outside looking in. So this was our time, because we could see the rise of professional people working within these roles, people that loved working within these roles and didn't want to actually go on and be a project manager or a program manager. They could see that the profession of actually creating an ecosystem, an environment of which change can be successful, is more than just the projects that are running. It's a lot more than that. And I think you'll probably appreciate that too, having worked in that space. So 2013, we started in earnest with things like the annual conference, which still goes today. We do things like create reports about some of the key challenges that are happening in PMOs today, all those different challenge areas. And we do it sometimes in a fun way, because that's how we get attention. That's how we make, that's how we learn. If we're having a bit of enjoyment with it, things tend to stick. So that's how we started. And then through that time where, we've been growing and developing, we've created a competency framework for PMO people. We've created some standards around some training for PMO people. The House of PMO Flash Mob still exists, but we've kind of grown up a little more, because people, we still do the PMO Flash Mob, which is about bringing people together. That's what we call kind of like the social and networking type events that we do. But the House of PMO is a professional membership organization for people that are working with PMO. So everything that you will get from House of PMO is going to be PMO specific. Okay. So as Joe had said, if you've got any questions at all throughout of this, I'm going to keep an eye on it, and we'll be able to pick up your questions as we go through. So please don't hesitate to ask me as we go through. So vision, what is the vision of what it is that we do? We've created a home for PMO professionals, hence the house of PMO. We love our analogy and being able to use that house to mean many things, but it is about people having that space to be able to develop themselves. Not only that, but to support the development of others, but also contribute to the development of the PMO profession. It is still young in comparison to, the profession around professionalization around project management and change. So there's a lot of development that's still happening around PMOs and will continue to do so as our organisations also continue to change. The thing that's really important to us is also to have that established PMO profession globally and all that that entails too. So not only are we, yes, we're based in the UK, we have links to all the other organisations in and around PMOs across the globe. We have regular meetings amongst us to make sure that we're, the kind of things that we're all working on and we can share. But it's important to us and people that are on this session today and anybody listening afterwards. But if you've been working in this field for a while, it's to have it recognised as a profession and all that goes and everything that goes along with that, is important to you as a professional, a practitioner working in this field. So how do we do all of this? And Joe hinted at it before with HPCA, and exactly the reason why HPCA has also been created. That's exactly the same for the House of PMO. It is about that community of practice. What we've often found is that with PMO work and the different things and challenge areas that we all deal with are the same regardless of where we work. Our context and our environments change, but some of the work that we do is the same. We're all supporting projects and programs and portfolios. It's just the way that we're doing it and the context that we're working in may change. But some of the technicalities of that and some of the behavioural skills that we need to be able to do that are the same. So House of PMO brings together that community of practice. And of course, I'm talking to you here today about an healthcare and NHS community. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But what is important is that the answers to a lot of the problems that we have exist in ourselves and also within our organisations. And this is what's really interesting we've found over the couple of decades we've been working in this space, is that the answers will always be from somebody who's slightly ahead of you. Yeah, there's always somebody that's already cracked a little problem that you'll be able to learn from. And that's what we've found in the whole PMO space, because there are not a whole raft of experts out there around PMO that have been there, done it, and have got the answers to all the challenges. It doesn't exist. It exists in the people that are doing the role today. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the PMO network in healthcare. Now, HPCA started a few years back, I think 2017, with a concept called the Project Futures. And that's how I first got to know Joe and the team, because it was all about, project and program and change delivery within the NHS and healthcare. A big part of that, and I remember the kickoff that they had in Leeds, was a lot of people in the room, as you can see there on the left-hand side, were all working in PMOs. Even though it was a Project Futures event, which included project managers and program managers, a lot of people there were working in PMOs because they have that kind of unique view when you're working across PMOs in your organisation, but you're not just seeing one project or one program. You're tending to see a lot more about what's going on in terms of change. And of course, you're looking at some of these challenge areas. A lot of these will look familiar to you. We already have members at the House of PMO that are working in NHS organisations today. And these are some of the things that they find challenging. Of course, yes, there's the top level things, and I'm sure you look at those and say, there's a lot more minute of detail that makes some of the challenging areas for you in your PMO work. But again, it's just everybody's having the similar challenges. And like I said, some people have managed to crack some of them. Some of them are still working on it. But wouldn't you love to know how other NHS organisations are tackling some of these sticky troublesome projects that we come across in terms of PMO, and listening to them and finding out what approach that they have given. So one of the things that we're doing with the HPCA and House of PMO partnership is that we do want to see this PMO network become stronger. And I'm hoping that today, when you've spent the time, bringing here on your lunch hour, to listening to this session, that you're one of those people that would be interested in making a positive difference to the whole PMO network and the work that happens in the NHS today. Because I really want to know whether, are you going to be in? Because we're looking for the ambassadors, we're looking for the champions, the people that really love the PMO work and can really see that the big differences that it can make to some of the change that is happening within the NHS today. So that's what we're going to be looking at. It's going to be about trying to pull together a network wherever you may be, whether it be across Wales and Scotland or across England. This is just the network that we're wanting to pull together, and that's some of the work that HPCA is going to be doing and the House of PMO there to hopefully support in building that network and bringing together good sessions and insights from other people that we can all learn from. So hopefully you might be thinking, I'd love to be getting involved in this, but let us know. So from a House of PMO, we talked about the community of practice, and we're also here about the expanding that PMO body of knowledge. I said there's not a lot of it around. There's a lot of project management related things on how to deliver projects successfully. But in terms of the PMO work and the variety of things we do, it's not just about, I said, delivering and supporting projects, within the NHS setting. You're working with a lot of different kind of stakeholders, some with project experience, some not. We're working with directorates, finance, HR, lots of different elements of the NHS business that makes our jobs interesting, unique, but also there's not a lot of support out there. There's not a lot of things that we can pick up off the shelf and say, I've got this problem, how can we try and solve it? We're going to solve it together. That's what's going to happen. So that's the kind of thing that we've been doing with the House of PMO. We talked about the body of the PMO competency framework, which I'll talk to you in a little bit more detail about in a second. But the other thing that's really important when you bring I want to say a gaggle of practitioners together, is that they, we need things like standards. We need to be able to have training opportunities and courses and things that fit our profession. I think for too long, people working within PMOs have only had the option, say, of doing a project management Prince 2 course, which is great for understanding projects and a particular method. But what about the role that the PMO performs within that kind of setting? So these are about training and development opportunities and courses and things that absolutely fit the job that you're doing today within the PMO. So let's have a look at, we've said how important it is that the answers lie in our community somewhere. So that's what we've done for the last 20 odd years, is how do we tap into that network? And half of it is about getting people together. I mean, I know some of people, working in organisations today where there's not actually many of you. You can be working in a PMO where there may be only you or a couple of you. And actually, it's having that opportunity to be with other people that are doing the role that you're doing, but they're doing it in a similar organisation to you as well. So you have a wonderful opportunity to be able to tap into what other people are doing within different NHS organisations. And the way that the House of PMO does it, like you can see some of the ridiculous things we've done, like PMO karaoke. It's the things where you're trying to engage people, but give them that platform and a space where you're not just going to come into a room cold and expected to start chatting to each other. We do it all around different kind of themes and challenge areas. We deliver it in different ways. We're doing both virtually and also in person. We're always listening to what challenges you've got. So we're then putting events specifically around some of the challenges you've got. So it's the events is where all the good stuff is hiding. And it's our job in order to bring it out. The one that you're looking there on the screen, these are a bunch of PMO people that decided to get out and about. And I know HPCA also got involved in this event. This one, it was all about the future around data analytics and AI. We know it's coming for PMOs. It's already here in a lot of ways. The AI has been, built into a lot of the tools that we use in MS Teams is a great example. And again, the answers are not there. If people are saying, well, what is the future for PMO? We're using this kind of technology. Don't know, but hey, let's find out. And that's what these people were doing at a Project Hack event in London just last year. So these are the kind of things where even if you can't get to some of these events, you're able to access all the stuff that we're doing. Videos are all recorded. The insights are all shared. So let's just have a little look about this partnership and what this is really all about in terms of what we're doing with HPCA and the House of PMO. There's actually a couple of things that's available. So for you familiar with HPCA, and perhaps you're already a member of it, but if you're not, your organisation can become an HPCA member. And I'm just going to flash that up on screen really quickly because there's a membership options depending on the avenue that you want to go down. Because within some of your membership of HPCA, you will see that there is a House of PMO membership included within it. So if your organisation becomes an HPCA member, you will also get some kind of membership to the House of PMO as well. So you're getting that link in. Okay, let me just hit back again. So these are some of the things that are very specifically about what you will get if you become a House of PMO member. And these are all the things that we're doing. You get access to all the events that we do, as special events. There's going to be certain events that are just going to be purely for NHS and healthcare people like yourself. But then you've also got access to the wider things that are happening around PMO as well. There's obviously the access to things like doing your self-assessments, which is a great step forward for anybody working in PMO today, is having that opportunity to do that. So there's different benefits of becoming part of not HPCA, which will also give you access to the House of PMO thing. But we're also conscious that, not everybody is able to, be in a position to do that, whether it's now or in the near future. What we will also be offering is membership discount for individual PMO practitioners that are currently working within the NHS to join the House of PMO directly. And you can see some of the pricing there on the bottom. So making it a little bit more accessible for you to be able to join the House of PMO and get the benefits of the House of PMO as well. So that's the way that we're approaching it. And there's two different things that you can look at. And you can have a look at some of the links that have already been shared. Anything to add there, Joe? Are you happy with, I gave a good enough account?
That was great stuff. Thank you. In fact, Melanie in the chat has asked, can I Bagsy one, please, Joe? And I was just replying to say, actually, part of what we want to do is, people can get access through their organisational members, but we're really keen to set up a PMO network. And so anybody who is willing to put the time in to lead and coordinate a PMO network, we will give House of PMO membership to as part of that role. So it's partly a commitment to us, but also our commitment to you to give you full access around your professional development through that network. So Melanie, if you're up for it, then we can have a chat about that, but also if anybody else is as well. Again, critical to moving this whole agenda forward is, as Lindsay said earlier, is a willing group of people who are prepared to do something to make it happen. And we need you to be that voice across the landscape and to help to coordinate and pull together people who want to be involved in developing a PMO. So we'll come back to that. But otherwise, thank you, Lindsay. That's great insight into the membership. And I know Shannon's been doing a great job of putting the links to membership of your organisation and the links to the House of PMO in the chat, as well as HPCA membership as well. Yeah. So yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you. And we've also got some questions which elevate Melanie. Lots of teams say they need the PMO. The problem is they're not always sure what one is. Absolutely. And I don't think that is a unique problem to the NHS either. It is the same wherever they go. And I think, you know, that is one of the things that piece of work we're going to be working on next, actually, is about that whole piece around the PMO, what it is, what the benefits are to that organisation. But of course, the benefits change depending on what kind of PMO it is. So it's one of those things where, you know, it's about being able to understand exactly the context, the environment, what are our objectives of that PMO, and then being very clear about what kind of services are offered by that PMO. And then it's a good communication job, isn't it, in terms of getting that filtered out. But yes, it's the same wherever you are. And I think I think when people see a great one, you know, then they know. But it's about being able to make sure it's everybody within the change organisation that are fully aware of that. And I had a question before for Mustafa. Should PMO be a department stroke function, or should good PMO be a skill and a discipline? Kind of clinician, finance, procurement, be good PMO practitioners. I think it's an interesting one. I mean, the way that we look at PMOs is that, yes, it can be obviously a department, it can be a function, it can be a skill, because often it is one person that sometimes just does the PMO role. Is as in terms of what kind of person, I think when you understand what, you know, what kind of PMO it is that's needed within a particular setting, that's when you can decide what kind of skills, competency, knowledge is required in that person that offers those services. So absolutely, you know, within any kind of organisation, you'll often see, you know, a PMO can be in that department, or actually, you know, it can just be one person that is starting to make a difference and getting projects on the straight and narrow. The number of times you will see so many organisations, and sometimes massive organisations, that have been just struggling along, letting their project managers deliver their projects. And then suddenly, you know, when they do more and more projects, become more and more complex, that's when the PMO starts to really come into its own, you know. So, but yeah, you're right. It's again a comment here. PMO has a portfolio of 30 programs to support and only 2 people to do it. And we get that problem all the time. Again, Melanie, again, it's about understanding which are the top PMO services that are absolutely needed to make that difference, and to stop doing some of the other things that perhaps then are not as important or not as valuable to the organisation, because yeah, only 2 people can only do so much. Absolutely. But again, you know, it is the same. It is the same. It's just that you've got unique politics and, you know, different environments that you're working within. I'll carry on with the session. So with the House of PMO, I said we share everything. Share the conference videos. We do sessions every week on different areas. We share all the articles. You know, you can, you know, bob into any of them. We've got an extensive library that's been going back since 2013. We have done a lot of different areas and picked up on all those kind of challenging areas. You know, agile is a big thing, has been a big thing for about 6-7 years now. We advocate the PMO service approach, which is about being able to pick and choose the right services for your organisation. And like I said, dropping the ones that don't make the difference. So being able to really focus and target on what the PMO is actually doing. Big one for a lot of us, metrics and measures. Are we being, you know, doing the job properly? Are we offering the, you know, doing the right services? How do we know this? All those kind of metrics, measures, KPIs, making that link between the strategic objectives and the delivery that's going on. Data analytics, as I've picked up on, PMOs, you know, we have them coming out of our ears, reports and data. There's a lot of change going on in this space, and we need to make sure that we're ahead of the curve. We've got events every week, as I said, virtually. Anybody who's becoming a member, some of them are free to attend. You can actually absolutely go and have a look at that website right now and pick up on some of the events that are coming up. You'll be free to come along to anyway. So go and check those out. But if you become a member, it is about, you know, you will get access to all the events and all the materials afterwards. And if you can't come along to an event at a certain time, you get access to that afterwards. So like I said, the answers lie within the community, and our job as a House of PMO is to curate that and to extract it and to give that to you and say, look, these are the key insights. This is what's happening. These are things that people are doing to overcome some of the challenges. Can you utilize some of this stuff? Can you use it? Can you bring it into your PMO? We also talked about the best practice stuff, which was around the PMO competency framework. And hopefully people can recognize the importance of something like this. This is about you, but it is also about the capabilities around your PMO. This is about the competency level that you as individuals have within the profession. And you can see that in our competency framework, it's an interesting one. It took us 3 years to create this with the community, by the way. This has been done by PMO practitioners working together as part of the House of PMO community. And it's an interesting one with PMO because it's like, how can you do one if all PMOs are different? Actually, there are things across it that are, that are the same. So for example, P3M delivery support, these are all the competency areas that you need to support projects, programs and portfolios. And again, for a lot of those will look familiar. The bits that start to get change and get interesting is the PMO management, obviously, if you're managing a PMO. But there's also this thing of P3M enabling, and that is the bit that the PMO is really doing, and nobody else is really doing within that organisation. Who puts together the assurance processes and assuring our projects and programmes? Who is looking at capacity development, so resource management? And who's looking at developing capability within our organisation, not just the PMO people, but for our projects, our programmes, our change people, but also our non-delivery people that are feeding into projects, our specialist subject matter areas and things like that. So again, the PMO is looking at the training and development and all that kind of good stuff. Delivery methods, how we're delivering projects and programs and change today. It's not about Prince 2 anymore. It is about a collection of different delivery approaches that get the job done for the right kind of project in the right kind of environment. That's where we're going. That's where things are starting to make a difference. Governance frameworks, and of course, all the different kind of tools. We call that like the whole P3M enabling is about enabling and creating that environment, that ecosystem that needs to exist for project and change to succeed. And if you look beyond that, I mean, so many different kind of disciplines come into effect there, because it isn't just about projects, programs and portfolios. There's the strategic elements, there's the business analyst parts of it, there's the change management part, there's the leadership and there's the management. There's lots of other things that come into place that touch our roles around PMO. But the competency framework has been created to allow you to do an assessment on all these key areas, all these key competency areas, but not only allow you to take stock. I've been doing this role for 6 months or 5 years or 10 years. How am I stacking up? What is it, what is that I've got? But also crucially allows us to see the gaps. And the interesting thing about your membership is you get access to the competency framework in order to be able to do your self-assessment using the tool. Okay. And again, the tool allows you to do a self-assessment against the competency areas based on what kind of context you want as well. Because that was the problem for us when we were creating this. It's like, how do you do one if you're working within a PMO that's a project focused, or it's just program focused, or actually it's a mix of both? Actually, we've took all of that into account, and you are able to do an assessment against different kinds of contexts. So that's project, programs, portfolios, and centre of excellence. But you can also do an self-assessment against the different types of roles you'll find within PMO, which is PMO administrator, an analyst, a manager, and a director. So for each level you'll find typically within that PMO structure, you can do a self-assessment against that too. But the important thing is, yes, it shows the gaps, but also for some of the corporate members, you're able to do a team assessment. So you're not only able to see people's individual assessments within a team, but crucially, you're able to see the gaps that exist within your team and perhaps what's not being covered off right now. So I'm coming towards the end of the session. And I just want to talk a little bit about the qualifications and trainings, and I'll come on to some any further questions following this. So we talked about how it's important to have things within your profession in terms of that. How do we find the knowledge? Where do we gain that knowledge from? And yes, we can find it through the events, that kind of informal way of learning from others. But there comes a time when you do need something a little bit more than that, which is that kind of formal accredited training. And they've been these certificates that have been developed by the House of PMO in conjunction with the examining body, the APMG International, which some of you may already be familiar with. They do the change management practitioner ones, they do the better business case ones, they also do the benefits management one. So we have got 4 different qualifications that are aligned to the different areas that I talked about in terms of what you see in the competency framework. And the interesting thing for these qualifications and how they differ from, say, something like P3O, which you might already be familiar with. P3O focuses on, how to set up a PMO, right? Why have a PMO? How to set one up? These are very much about you and the knowledge, skills, and behaviours that you need to be able to do the job. So if you look at a role profile for an administrator, one of the things that you will be doing is things around reporting and things like your issues, your risks, your change, your RAID logs, registers, things like that. This is the kind of course that teaches you about what your role is and what will be required of you. And, there's never been that kind of thing before. It's just been a case of each person goes into a role and here's a job spec and, we've made this role within our organisation, and these are the things that we do when we run projects. And actually what this has allowed people to do is, certainly for people that are coming into this role, maybe straight from university or coming in from a business role, you can kind of come in right at the administrator level, or what we tend to find as well at the PMO director level, people that have been working within the organisation in a business role perhaps, who are coming into the PMO, they're making that move across. And again, it allows them to do that training specifically around the kind of roles and responsibilities of us, a PMO director. Interestingly, the biggest course in terms of what you can find is the PMO analyst, because they are the ones that are the real fuel in that tank, that engine room. They are the people that are doing so much stuff and across so many different kind of services, but it tends to be the bigger course. But the House of PMO don't run courses. That's done by accredited trainers from APMG International, which you can find on their website. So that is the quick. I wanted to give you an overview of the House of PMO and what it is that we do and where we come from, how we're approaching this, the kind of vibe that we have. Again, probably different if you're part of APM. We have a different kind of vibe going on for different kind of people. Like I said, the PMO is staffed with different types of PMO practitioners, often doing different types of work depending on the organisation that they're working within and the context in which they're working in, and the types of people that they're working with. And that's what makes it such a brilliant job. And I hope that, today's rallying call for champions and things, that you'll be really up for getting involved and, be looking forward to doing more work with you. A couple of questions about from Melanie: how many of your events happen outside of London? I hate to bring it up, but before COVID, we were doing London, Birmingham, Manchester and Scotland, and we're trying to get back there. How the culture has changed significantly with people working at home, trying to get people out and about again. But hopefully we're going to be able to do some NHS specific ones, but we can work, and get those people together. But it's been a bit of a slog, Melanie, I'll be honest, getting people out and about again. I don't know how you're finding it, but we try hard. But yes, the next couple House of PMO ones will be in London. However, we are in Edinburgh at the beginning of November. Got a conference for 1 or 2 days, depending on what you're interested in. But yeah, we will be back in Scotland. I
think that conference is going to be a great one, because I'm going to be there and finding out the latest of what's going on and connecting. And you know, it's a real opportunity to share a network with others that are working in it from different sectors, because that cross fertilization is invaluable. But also, you know, this is the innovative stuff in the PMO profession, and therefore, you know, this is where to find it out. So I'm going to be there if anybody else is up for it.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. No, like, well, yeah, I mean, we love it. I mean, of course, it's amazing to get out and about as well. But okay, so I've got some questions. Do you see change management fitting into the role of a PMO, or should there be a separate house like that for change? It may depend on the organisation. It absolutely does, Jocelyn. It's I mean, this is the beauty of PMO. It comes in all shapes and sizes, and people sometimes. Well, this is why the service approach has been the switch. That's been the biggest switch around PMOs, I would say, in the last kind of 5 years. Instead of trying to offer everything to everyone, it has been about trying to really understand what the organisation wants. What's the biggest problems they've got? And we focus on trying to solve some of those problems. In order to solve those problems, we have to work out, well, what services PMO offers that will help us to overcome some of those problems. So if you're finding that, you know, I know, for example, the BBC, they have their change management separate. Just because of the sheer size and transformation that they went through, it was fitting that they would have change management separately, with the PMO offering some support to change managers and various other practitioners within it. What you sometimes see with big PMOs is that they may offer support from the PMO hub. But that's another thing that there's different kind of contexts and profiles and structures of PMO, that they may offer support from that central hub to the change team. And interestingly, you do tend to find that PMO practitioners love to take that change management course because it's helping them understand more of the behavioural side of change. Because actually, the role that the PMO is often doing, you know, trying to make change stick, is that they are doing some of those change management practitioner type activities in their day-to-day work. But again, there's never a clear-cut answer, is there, to this kind of stuff? We know how difficult change is in any organisation. So again, it does come down to often is who you have available as well. So if you find that you've got somebody just organically within the team that seems to be brilliant, that's changed stuff, you probably build a role around them. So again, it really does depend on sometimes how these things come to bear. But yeah, I think at the moment I would say it's more that change is seen outside the PMO, but the PMO does offer support. But people working in PMO do use change management practices. Yeah. How does the House of PMO work with APM? We don't really at the moment, other than how we work with other professional bodies like PMI, also IPMA. We are more about, I mean, we're friends and everything, you know, it's we're big supporters of each other's work, obviously. But I think for us, it's like I said at the beginning, we're taking insights from everywhere. And often what we'll find from APM is that there's not enough with the PMO side. Yes, we still have a SIG. Doesn't seem to be very active though. So when we're looking at some of the things that come out from APM, we're asking that question. Okay, so what's the PMO role in this? How does the PMO support these kind of things? So that's the difference. APM is very much for delivery practitioners, where I see PMO, yes, we are delivery practitioners. We're not delivering the projects. We are supporting the environment, the ecosystem of which their projects are being delivered from. And that's the angle, but it doesn't seem to be there. And that's the bit where PMOs struggle, I think, you know. So
I would agree with that. I think that's something that the APM really has, in a sense, limited their scope on. So I'm a chartered project professional and I'm a fellow of the APM. So I work with them a lot in terms of what they do and develop. And they rebranded recently, and they had an opportunity to kind of reframe what they do and the name of what they do. But they stuck with the old name, which was Association for Project Management. And when it comes down to it, when you look at the competencies, the qualifications, the chartered status, it is very much aligned very specifically to project management. in order to become a chartered project professional, they say that you can do it from other roles, but you have to evidence having delivered against the competencies. Well, if you've got evidence delivering, managing project change, managing the governance of a project, managing the planning, managing the stakeholders, as a PMO specialist, you might not be doing those things because that's not necessarily your job to do that. So it becomes very hard for somebody who's not a project manager to be able to complete the chartership process. So if you're a benefit specialist or a risk specialist or a PMO, that makes it really difficult. And they haven't really broadened it out. So Lindsay and the team have really come into a space where there was a massive gap. I know that the APM is reviewing its body of knowledge, and I think there's an opportunity there to look at where some gaps are, not just around this, but also around things like the change management side. Because again, it's very traditional project management focus, and it comes from a heavy industry background, and that still kind of echoes through the way in which it approaches it. And a lot of that isn't really contextually appropriate to the NHS because we don't do those kinds of projects on a day-to-day basis. If we do have some big construction, it's generally outsourced and somebody else does it. We focus on a lot of people change. We focus on service improvement, transformation, systemic change programs and projects. And therefore, the kinds of skills, knowledge, and competencies needed to deliver that aren't necessarily particularly aligned directly with the APM. I just want to say on that the government, so the government's Infrastructure and Projects Authority that sets the standards for project delivery for the public sector as a whole, they created a capability framework that was based on the APM one, which is fine, but again, it's just really project focused. So when we adapted it for the NHS, we brought some change management specialists in to try and redress the balance to make it much more people focused, but also included additional roles around the portfolio management office and the program and project office, because we know that those are really critical as part of the infrastructure to be able to deliver. So Melanie's point about having 30 projects and only 2 people in a PMO, absolutely, that's part of the challenge. So if you haven't got that organizational infrastructure supporting the delivery of all these projects and change, how are you going to know that they're being managed effectively? How are you going to support them? And this is where the House of PMO and both the training and the accreditation comes in, because this is something that we can embed in the NHS capability framework and standards and competencies so that we can deliver what we need that's fit for purpose for the NHS.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things obviously that I shared there was if you're you can do it in 2 ways. You obviously become part of HPCA, and that's a wider conversation with your organisation, which obviously get in touch directly with Joe and the team. But if you do feel that you're kind of alone, hopefully the discount that will be available in the next couple of weeks, we'll be rolling that out and promoting that, and building, again, making connections with other people that are similar to you, because there's so many PMOs out there, or 1 and 2, and being part of something wider. But I also see the question there, or the comment that is about the time to get involved in these kind of activities. And yes, there's kind of conversations, I suppose, back with the managers and things like that. Some of the stuff that we do is out of work time. I have no idea how that works in terms of your cultures, but some of obviously the events we do are outside of work hours as well. So these are all the kind of things that it's trying to understand how to make it work and fit for the way that you work within the NHS. And I think we need it would be nice to start to get to a critical mass of, say, 15, 20 people, and having those conversations about how do we want to do this, because from the House of PMO, obviously we're committed to the profession, development of the PMO profession, and the NHS is one of the largest employers in the UK. So we need to be, working together to help you, to develop this network. But again, it's got to fit with the day job, as we all know. Yeah,
it does. but just on that, Mel, because I know, Melanie, I know you commented on that, and I think part of this is about having parity with other professions in the NHS. Because actually your professional development, if you work in a PMO, you're part of a PMO team, then it should be part of your professional development. So being part of a community of practice, being part of a professional association, supporting your development, but also how you can then use that learning to support the organisation to improve. And improve the maturity and capability. Otherwise, how else do you continue to evolve? So I think the argument is not that it's an add-on to the day job. It should be part of the day job and should be part of your personal development plan. Because if and again, this is part of what we want to do as an association, is get the profession recognised. And so for those that have, if they're in the finance profession or HR or they're clinicians, part of their job is CPD, it's attending training and development, it's being part of development communities of practice. Last week, I was at the HPMA conference, the Healthcare People Management Association. So that's the HR and OD and L&D people. And there was, 600 people there from all across the NHS, all there talking about how do we improve how we do this, how do we make this better, how do we share resources, how do we learn from this and move on. And that's where we need to get to around this profession, that your development and the organisation's development isn't an add-on to the day job, it's part of the day job and needs to be built into both job descriptions and personal development plans. That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, so I think I've got most of the questions, and there's some great comments, and thanks for engaging. That's really helpful. I'm just really intrigued to and to get to that point where we start to understand some of your specific challenges, and getting started with let's try and find some solutions to some of this stuff. But I know that one of the first questions that I think it was Melanie about what is a PMO and what can it do. I think that's the first kind of piece that we're going to be working on over the next few weeks. So look out for that.
Yeah, so I asked some questions in the chat about, what were people interested in being part of a network, and some of you have said yes. I think the starting point is we'll get that conversation going and start to frame what are the challenges, what are the issues that you have in terms of your role in a PMO, and then what can we do collectively to start that ball rolling. So get those definitions out there, start to promote the role of the PMO, the standards, the competencies, and build it from there and see who else is interested. We know that others are interested in being part of a community. So let's get it going. We will be in touch and get the first meeting of the newly formed PMO network in the calendar, and hopefully we'll be able to help you to do your jobs better while you help the rest of the NHS get the right standards and competencies in place.
Great.
Okay, fantastic. Loads of great links in the chat. If you've missed any, they should be available afterwards. We will record this and make it available for anybody who wants to follow up on it. And look forward to seeing you at the next session. Thank you ever so much, Lindsay, for joining us. And will be great to see you at the conference. So do come and see and meet the team at the conference and hear more about it, because that's going to be a really great event. Yeah. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.
Right. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.